Hello everyone, I'm here with the Limited Master, Ben Stark. For people who don't know, Ben Stark is a long-time professional player. I think you have 5 prototypes with a win with the Callblade. Not sure if that counts because that deck was busted. But anyway, you won, you won, and you have 23 GP topates with 2 wins. It would be 4 if your opponent in the remaining 2 finals wasn't as good as he was, but you know, that's the world we live in. That was me, by the way. And yeah, overall considered to be one of the best limited players in the world, and I'm very happy I can talk to you today. How it's going, man?
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, it'd be going better if I didn't play against such a lucky GP finalist a couple of times so I could have more wins. But, you know, can't overcome luck with skill, so I guess here I am with only two firsts. Other than that, yeah, it's going well. How are you?
I'm doing alright, I suppose. I mean, Corona is pretty bad in Czech. You can't really go anywhere, so that sucks, but besides that, I'm doing alright, I guess.
Yeah, it's bad here too. Same thing. I mean, I've been lucky that, you know, like, not me or any of my, like, parents or family have really, like, experienced it. So it's only been the inconveniences, which I'm not going to complain about when so many people are dealing with, you know, literal sickness and death. But, you know, yeah, it's like that here too. There's a lot of cases. It's bad here. And, you know, a lot of things are closed and restricted and so on.
Mm-hmm. Can you go to like restaurants and like gyms and stuff where you live, or?
It varies a lot. Luckily, South Florida has, you know, really good weather in the winter, like relatively warm and all of that. So a lot of places have outdoor dining because, like, outdoor is generally considered much safer for not transmitting than indoor. I know a lot of, like, Northeast cities and restaurants are all going out of business and closing and struggling with that because it's too cold. People aren't going to sit outside and eat. But in Florida, it's like, you know, it's just beautiful. It's like 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So, like, you can easily just space the tables out outside and sit outside and eat if you want to go to a restaurant.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your Magic career. From the information that it's on Wikipedia, I'm not sure if it's correct or not, but it usually is. You qualified for the Pro Tour at 1999, and then at 2004 you took away the 2 Pro Tours in a row, but you took some break right after that for about 5 years. Can you like maybe talk about the beginnings and why you maybe decided to take a break? Just talk about your career in the beginning if you can.
Yeah, totally. That's one of the very few regrets I have in my life is stepping away from the Pro Tour in 2004. If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have done it. So, you know, I started playing Magic in 6th grade in fall of 1994. I was right around my 11th birthday. My birthday is October 12th, and the school year here starts beginning of September. So I don't actually know whether I was 10 or 11 when I started playing Magic. You know, I definitely never heard of it in elementary school, and then I started 6th grade September of 94. Turned 11 October of 94, and I started playing Magic when I started 6th grade, sometime around then. Anyways, you know, I always loved strategy games. I always loved games. Before I played Magic, I would always play board games. I would invent games, like, not like, you know, real board games, just me and my friends would come up with things to play. Like, always, you know, just all about, like, playing games. Like, video games, board games, coming up with our own games, whatever. Like, we were just all about games. And then I found Magic. I thought it was the best game. I just got immediately completely hooked. Like, you know, I know a lot of people have quit Magic and come back. I did quit the Pro Tour, but I literally, since the day I started playing Magic, have never completely quit. I've had times where I sold my cards, did more only limited, times where, you know, I had bigger collections, played more constructed in person and whatever, but I've literally never stopped playing the game since the day I started in 6th grade. Which I hate to say this, but is 26 years ago now, as I mentioned, 1994. So then, okay, so I'm playing whatever. I started playing local tournaments right away, not qualifiers, but there were like, you know, $5 to buy in, store credit for first, second, and third type tournaments in my like town, like literally when I was in 6th grade, like right away. So we started going to those on Saturdays and stuff, you know, obviously in school and a child. So on like the weekend, we would go to those and things like that. Then at some point, my friends just found PTQs. I really don't remember who the first person to be like, hey, there's this thing called the Pro Tour and qualifiers you can play in was. but they were about it. And I live in South Florida, like not that far from Miami. Miami is a big city. It had like one PTQ per season, so we had one that we didn't have to like travel to. It was just, a 30-minute drive or whatever. So then we started playing those, and I won my fourth one, which actually was a drive. Thank you again to my parents for taking me up to Tampa, about 3 to 4 hour drive away, where I won. I believe it was the fourth PTQ I ever entered. It was a
That's really impressive.
It was a Saga Legacy Destiny PTQ. It's definitely limited. I mean, if I'm wrong, it was Saga Legacy, not Saga Legacy Destiny or something. But I think it was Saga Legacy Destiny, and it was a limited PTQ for Pro Tour London 1999.
Ben just left.
Yeah, my cat just.
No, don't worry. No worries.
Sure.
I just thought it was funny. That's all.
And Rachel just came in to feed the cat.
How's it going, Rachel?
So I'm doing an interview with Petr, Rachel.
Oh, hi, Petr. Oh my God, I thought this was. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
But I didn't inform her of this at all.
No, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I
just figured if I was talking, then maybe she would figure that out. But anyways, yeah. So I won my fourth PTQ. It was definitely limited, sealed, and draft, and that was for London '99. Which there's always been a fall Pro Tour in October. I mean, the schedule is a little different now, but for most of the Pro Tour history, and like I said, I'm born October 12th, so that was right around my 16th birthday, October 1999.
Since you said that you were hooked into Magic immediately, did you just play for fun for some time, or did you since day one were thinking about like maybe becoming a pro and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, I didn't even know about the Pro Tour. I mean, it already existed, I think, not in fall of '94, but I think it started right around like '95, really like right around then. But I didn't know about it then. But like I said, I started immediately playing in tournaments. Like not necessarily day one, but like, by like the third month of playing the game or whatever, we were going on Saturdays to these like local stores that would have like $5 cash to buy in, like first gets, $30 store credit, second gets $20 store credit kind of tournaments. So I was already playing like competitively, I guess, just tuning my deck the best I could and going to local store tournaments when I was 11 in like, winter or spring of '94, let's say. Or spring of '95 or winter '94.
So we've mentioned it a little bit already, but in 2004 you took a break. You said that with what you know now, you kind of regret that decision. But what was going through your head when you made that decision back then? Like, why did you did it? Can you just like talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, it was definitely something I regret, and I know exactly why I did it and why I wouldn't do it now and how I've kind of evolved as a person. So, I mean, for a long time, I'm not one of those people who won my first PTQ and then, even though I did win my fourth, and then got on the Pro Tour immediately and had all kinds of success. My first Pro Tour London, that one I went 2-4 or 2-4-1 or something. I got like a top 64 in my second, but then I bricked like my third and fourth as well. And then maybe I had another min cash, and then I bricked some more. And it took me a few years before I got like on the train, so to speak. I started to cash consistently in the summer of 2002. And so like about 3 years later, I top 64 Worlds in Australia in 2002. And then after that, I cashed the next two Pro Tours as well, 33rd in Houston and top 48 in Chicago. And then I got around 20 pro points and got on the train and, from the 3 cashes in a row and started queuing for all of them. And so like, so fast forward now 2 years later from when I started to get on the train in 2002 to 2004, a lot of people are starting to consider me one of the best in the world. I finished top 10 in the Player of the Year race in 2004. Completely coincidentally, and I top 8'd my last 2 individual Pro Tours, actually. Kobe and San Diego were, and then there was like Worlds after that, but those were the last 2 individual Pro Tours I played, and I top 8'd both of them. And then so a lot of people were considering me like, one of the best in the world. And then I coincidentally started to play online poker around the same time. A lot of the Magic pros my age, this is when we're like 20, 21, had found that it was just a great way to make money. This is, it's not the same as it is today. Like people were really bad, had no clue what they were doing. There was like no laws and regulations really. It was just like, people were just, putting a ton of money online who had no business playing poker and just basically giving their money away. So
that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it was, and being like a a pretty smart competitive gamer, and from a middle class family, I never had any money to my name before this. The Magic Pro Tour didn't have the MPL back then. You could write some for some people for very small amounts of money, but the sponsorship and the writing and stuff paid next to nothing. So like you didn't make money on the Magic Pro Tour. Even if you top eighted back-to-back Pro Tours, yeah, now maybe you had some money in your bank account as opposed to being dead broke, but you weren't making like a good living or something like that. And look, I didn't need to. I was 20. I lived with my parents up until that point the whole time. But I'm just saying, basically, I was relatively broke until online poker in 2003 or 4. So then my friends start getting me into that, and I started just making good money right away, and a lot more money than I was making playing Magic. Even top eighting back-to-back Pro Tours, the money I made from that was like nothing compared to the poker money.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Was the prize pool the same as it was like when I entered the Pro Tour, or was it even less?
It was basically the same. Like, there's a reason we were all complaining so much about how they never raised the prizes. I don't remember to the dollar, but I know like London 99, my first Pro Tour, had a prize pool of somewhere around 250 or 230 or something. Just like when you entered the Pro Tour, probably 10 to 15 years later, the prize pool is roughly 250 or something. It was pretty embarrassing. Like, Wizards did a good job with the MPL money, I think, but before that, we never saw like a serious increase in prize money. There were small increases. I'm not going to say they weren't. They like expanded the Pro Club. But there was the Masters back then, even dating back to 99, which is basically the same thing as the Pro Club. Different structure, but in terms of amount of money, not that different. I think the Pro Club paid a little more, and I think they expanded the prize pools a little more. But really, it was kind of sad how little the expansion in prize money in the Pro Tour Magic was from 99 to 2000.
The video's stuck. Oh, it's fine right now. No worries.
So anyway, though, going into 2004, I started to have all kinds of success. I finished, I think, 7th in the Player of the Year race, top 8 my last 2 Pro Tours. But I'm also playing all this poker now, right? Up to that point in my life, I just eat, sleep, and breathe Magic. Like when I was in middle and high school, my teachers were teaching, and I was writing Magic decks in my notebook. Like I would never, ever, ever, ever like into anything really besides Magic from that point. Like literally eat, sleep, and breathe it. So then now I'm playing all this poker, and I just can't dedicate the time to Magic that I had previously. So I just stopped going to the Pro Tours because kind of out of like a little bit of pride and ego, because I knew that I could still be good enough to compete, but I knew I could not be like one of the best in the world, but I could not be like top 10 in the world. And, I think if I had not had all the success I had in 2003 and 4, I would have probably just kept going. But at that point, I felt like I couldn't live up to people's expectations. Because yes, I could play that well if I practice Magic all the time, but I cannot play that well if when I'm at home, I'm playing online poker all the time and I'm barely playing Magic online or anything,
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
I think because I was like kind of young and didn't really have the self-confidence I have now, I didn't want to kind of underperform what I felt like people's expectations would be for me. So I just stopped going,
So basically, when you left with the fact that you were one of the best, and people still thought that, but you were just afraid that if you're gonna continue, people are going to stop thinking that, basically.
Well, so sort of. To be fair to me here, it's not like because I was worried I would get bad results and then people would think that or something. If I had not been playing online poker and I had the ability to still practice Magic 50 hours a week, I had every confidence in my ability to be one of the best. I'm not saying I would be number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or number 5. But I'm saying, like, I knew I could play Magic, like, really well if I was well practiced. And up to that point in my life, I was always well practiced. Not for every constructed tournament. Sometimes I just drafted all week because I didn't like the constructed format. But I played so much Magic all throughout my life up to that point. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep playing 30, 40, 50, 60 hours of Magic a week because I was going to be switching a lot of that time to online poker because it paid so much more money, so that I wouldn't be well practiced and I wouldn't play that well and I wouldn't be able to live up to people's expectations.
That makes sense. So you came back at 2009, and I think 2011, which is like 2 or like 1 year after that, depending on where you came back. I don't know for sure. You immediately won a Pro Tour. What were the reasons why you decided to come back? Were you just like missing it too much, or maybe you like already made enough money that you could focus on something that you like more? What was the reasons?
Yeah, that's pretty much in line with it. It was basically like, like I said, when I was 20 and I felt like I couldn't live up to people's expectations because I wouldn't be practicing, I decided to step away rather than come back and not play well. 5 years later, by the time I was 25, I think I developed the like kind of, I just didn't really care what people thought. I was just like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to split my time between Magic and poker, and I'm not going to be as good as I was, and that's okay. Like, I don't really care if people think like I'm not one of the best now because I'm splitting my time. I'll know that's the reason. And I've always missed the Pro Tour. I've always missed playing against great players. And if I'm, not as good as I could be because I have a job, basically, I have this other thing that takes up 30, 40 hours a week of my time, so be it, like, that's okay. I'm still gonna, if I'm good enough to compete and queue, then I will. And if I'm not, then I won't. And I'll just do the best I can. And I won't worry if I'm, one of the very best or not.
Was it hard for you? I'm sorry.
When I won the Pro Tour, like you said, in 2011, I mean, like you joked about in the intro, it is true. Winning a standard Pro Tour with a legacy deck was not really that hard. But, like I also did get like 17th in the next Pro Tour Nagoya and top 16 in Worlds that year. So, I mean, clearly I was back to kind of playing well at that point. But also, of course, you have to run well. Like, you don't finish first, 17th, and top 16 in 3 of the 4 tournaments without running extremely well.
Can you maybe talk about that Callblade deck a little bit? For people who don't know, Callblade was like the standard deck that played like Stoneforge Mystic and Jace, and it was completely busted. I think one of the interesting things about it is that Brian Kibler, actually the Worlds right before that, played like a Call Go deck that didn't play Mystic, but Mystic was like legal back then and Jace was as well. The only change was sort of Feast and Famine, but I think the deck will still be busted even with like sort of Body and Mind. Like, what was going through your head when you just like kind of realized that there is this like broken deck that no one was playing? Like, how did you even like get to that deck? Like, I don't know.
Well, so the year before, we played a Naya deck with Stoneforge for like Basilic Caller and Loxodon and Warhammer.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that LSV created, in San Diego with, and that deck was not busted by any means. It was fine. But so like I think Stoneforging for Sword was a big part of why Stoneforging was broken. Stoneforging for Basilic Caller and like Warhammer or whatever was fine. It was tier 1-ish, but it wasn't broken. As far as Callblade or Call Go at Worlds that Brad and I think Kibler worked on and played, I didn't work on that with them. Me and Martin and some other people played. I think Martin played Valakut at that Worlds that we worked on. And both of those lists were pretty innovative. Like Valakut and Kago were not like super standard decks. So like, that's where our efforts were focused. And I don't really know how good Kago was at that Worlds or not. I really have no idea. Actually, I think I'm confusing formats. I think the Valakut deck was for Modern or Extended, and Kago was for Standard. I think in Standard I played Vampires at that Worlds. Yeah. Either way, though, 100%, I did not play Kago at that Worlds, and the team was divided on what we played. And I think that was the Worlds where me and Ifro played Vampires. He went 6-0, I went 4-2. We both worked on it. It was primarily my deck. Kibler and Brad and others worked on Kago and played it, and lots of the other team played other decks and stuff. 100%, I did not play Kago at Worlds or work on it. So I don't really know how good it was at that Worlds or not. But I do think that there's some truth to what you said, but also some counter argument, and that being able to search up Sword is kind of what made that deck.
Well, sort of Body and Mind was legal. I obviously know it's way worse than sort of Feast and Famine, because you can just like put it into play, attack, untap, and then have like a counter spell backup or whatever. But I still think it would be like really good, right? You don't think that?
I'm not saying it wouldn't. I'm not saying they shouldn't have played Stoneforges in their deck with the Hawks and the Jaces and sort of Body and Mind, but I can definitely tell you that it was a different feeling when you searched up sort of Feast and Famine. Like, I didn't work on that deck at all. I didn't go to the testing because they chose to test in San Diego, and I'm East Coast, so I went to like a Star City in Indy and then flew to Paris. Literally, when I got off the plane, like, LSV or somebody was like, we have a good one for this one, and handed me the Callblade deck or whatever. And like, I didn't even know anything in it. And literally, I remember, I'll never forget the feeling. I played a couple fun games with my, whoever I was rooming with. I think actually Max, my old roommate from South Florida. And then that morning I had no idea how good the deck was. And then the morning of the Pro Tour, I literally like game 1 round 1 against Valakut that doesn't really interact with you. I like, I played Stoneforge, just got Sword, because I literally looked through the deck and there's Solvak Lifestaff and Sword of Feast and Famine. and Solvak Lifestaff was a joke. It probably shouldn't have been in the deck, but obviously, if you're going to get Solvak Lifestaff, it's going to be against aggro, and I'm playing against Valakut, a ramp deck, so obviously I get Sword. And then I literally put it in play end of their turn on turn 3, you know, just turn 2 Stoneforge, turn 3 tap the 2, put it in play. Turn 4, I look at my hand, I look at what's going to happen, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to spend 8 mana on turn 2, on turn 4 of Standard. Like, this is totally broken. And like, I had no idea how broken the deck was or how good the deck was at all. Like, for all I knew, it was just another average deck or whatever. And then when it suddenly, I looked at my hand and realized I was going to spend 2 to equip, 2 to play Hawk, untap all my lands, play Jace. I just realized, like, oh my, I'm going to spend 8 mana here on turn 4 and then 10 mana on turn 5. Like, this is the most broken thing, like, in existence. Like, this is one of the best. This is just crazy. Because, like, you know, decks go through all these hoops and combos and play a million cards to double their mana, and I did it with a 2-drop. You know what I mean? Like, it was a 1-card combo. It was just the card Stoneforge. Because even though it's Stoneforge and Sword, like, Sword you search for with Stoneforge. So effectively, a 2-mana, 1-card combo doubles your mana on turn 4 and 5 in Standard, and that's just, like, beyond broken. So I think there's some truth to what you're saying in that, yes, they probably would have had a better list if they played Stoneforge for Sword of Body and Mind, but I don't think Sword of Body and Mind making a 2/2, I don't think it's comparable to untapping your 4
of course.
mana. Like, obviously, you're not saying it's better. Of course, everybody chose Feast and Famine exclusively after that, and you would too. But I don't think it's nearly the same level of broken. It may have been good. Like, I think if you could go back to that world and play Stoneforge with Sword of Body and Mind, Kibler would likely do that. But I don't think it would have been broken. I think Sword of Feast and Famine is what really... I think it was doubling your mana is just the broken part.
So you
should never have that ability. Like, it's sort of Feast and Famine. You can come up with a lot of different green and black abilities for it, and or it should never have doubled your mana.
Yeah, I agree. So you mentioned the fact that, you know, as you've kind of grown, you kind of stopped caring what other people think, so that made it fine for you to come back. How it is with you and Magic and maybe poker right now with like all this MPL stuff? I also see that you stream a lot. You know, how is your time divided right now, if you can talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Like, I say from time to time how I'm busy, and like I'm never complaining. Like, my life is awesome. Like, I'm very lucky to work in gaming and to have a good income and all of that. But yeah, I split all my time between all of these things. I mean, there are, you know, weeks where I play 30 or 40 hours of poker. Sometimes I take off for a week just to jam testing, which like I've had to do most. And listen, like anytime you have a good result, the number one factor is luck, but also being prepared and having, you know, a good list and knowing how to play well does contribute, of course. And like, for example, one of my last really good finishes, I top 4 working by myself completely. I top 4 Worlds in 2018.
Was it with the mono red deck?
Yeah, with the mono red, and that was, I played Rigging Runner, a card nobody had ever played. The reason was because everybody was on the Chain Whirler deck, and we knew that, so I needed to cut up as many 1-toughness creatures as I can, and you can always make that thing a 2/2, because, you know, a deck full of all little creatures that attack, so you're not vulnerable to Chain Whirler if you play like Lava Runner and Rigging Runner, and like you cut as many of the 1-toughness creatures as you could. And the mono red deck, so I get whatever, without going off in depth about that format, which I'm sure no one cares about. Basically, the red-black mid-range was the defining deck of the format. Worlds is a small field. We knew it was going to be like a lot of the field, but we also knew that the people who didn't play it would be reacting to it. And the way you react to a mid-range deck like that is going over the top of it, right? Like, so if you can build a mono-red list that's close-ish to 50-50 with it, even if you're a dog, because you cut the 1-toughness creatures, you're going to go way under all the decks that are going over the top of it. So then,
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask about that. A lot of the people playing the red black said that the mono red matchup is actually bad for them. I wanted to ask that if you actually think that what you're saying is that you think it was like close, right? You don't think it was bad because.
Yeah, I don't think it was good or bad for them. I think it was close. And if you played with a lot of 1-toughness creatures, then the Chain Whirlers would just shut down your aggression completely, and it wouldn't be close. If you made a list like I did, and I'm not saying mine was perfect, but if you shaved the 1-toughness creatures for Rigging Runners for other 2-toughness creatures, then I think you just make it a close matchup. I don't think it's very good for mono red or very good for red black. Then all these blue-black controls, and people started playing Turbo Fog. I know I beat Matt Nass playing that, and I beat Siggy playing blue-black control, and a bunch of other lists like that. Mono red just annihilated a lot of those type of decks, because those were decks that were built to go over the top of mid-range decks, and they were way too slow to compete against a mono red aggro, you know, like a heavy 1-drop burn variant. So, I ended up, like, I 4-2'd the draft. I had a really good constructed record. Like, I don't remember, but I think I only had like 2 losses or something, so like 8-2 or something like that. And then I did get really terrible draws against Greg in the top 4. Like, I basically didn't.
Yeah, I remember that.
But anyways, my point there was so. What got me talking about that was like, so for that tournament, Worlds is such a big tournament with so much on the line. So I basically stopped playing poker and stuff and just tested, for a couple of weeks, all day, every day by myself, tuning and making that list. And then it's not about whether you work with other people or not. It's that like I was playing that much Magic because I was testing like all day, every day, that I like knew how to play all the games well and make good plays and things like that. So, like, you don't always get the same Ben S in a tournament these days. Like, sometimes I come and I'm well practiced, well prepared, and I play really well, regardless of whether I'm playing, like, the stock deck of the format that I've tuned or whether I'm playing a brew that I've tuned. Either way, I'm well practiced. I've tuned my deck. I know what I want to do. I can sideboard on the fly. I'm not claiming to be the best, but I'm very good. Or, look, like...
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I have Pro Tour top 8s and 23 Grand Prix top 8s or whatever. I'm not going to pretend I'm not, like, a very good Magic player when I'm practiced. And like I said, I never claim to be the best. You can rank the best player, the second best player, the third best player, the fourth best player, whatever, a lot of different ways. But what I'm saying is there are times where I'm definitely tier 1 because I'm well practiced, and there are times where I played 30 hours of poker, did my stream, made some other limited content, and I didn't practice at all, or I practiced for a few hours and I'm not very good and I'm not, one of the best. And if you were doing a fantasy draft, there are times where, for a tournament, there are times I should be in your top like 10 or 20 picks, and there are times I should be not in your top 100 picks, because it just comes down to like how well prepared I am for that tournament.
Mm-hmm, that makes sense.
A lot. Mm-hmm. And so, like, what I was trying to say was, like, you asked how I split my time, and it just varies a ton. Like, there are times where I take the week off and practice all week for Worlds, and I put in 60 hours of practice, and there are times where I don't. It just varies greatly.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the fact that you make like limited content. Also, when you stream, you usually stream limited. And in general, you're considered to be like, just like a limited guy. Obviously, you have a success in constructed as well. But when someone says Ben Stark, everyone thinks of limited. Why do you think that is? Do you just enjoy playing it way more, or what is going on with you and limited? Like, why are you considered to be that way?
Yeah, well, so, it has become a brand. Like, that's not to say it's fake. It's based off reality. It wasn't like we were sitting around one day and we were like, well, how can we get Ben more popular? Hey, Ben, even though you don't like Limited, we're going to pretend you love Limited, right? Like, it's not like that. Like, basically, what happened was I've always loved draft. I've always gotten together with my friends and drafted at home, way more than I've played constructed, just in terms of what I enjoy more. So then fast forward CFB 2010 or so, we start to assemble this playtest team, and I'm just seeing what's going on, and a lot of our best people are really good at tuning constructed decks. Raptor was definitely the best person on the team at the time as far as putting in effort and ability. He was tuning constructed decks really well. LSV and PV, the best players and the big, figureheads, were both much better at tuning constructed decks than solving draft formats. So I just was like, okay, I guess I'll just work on limited, what I like better anyway, given we have all these great minds tuning constructed decks, but they're not like some combination of putting in the effort or as skilled at solving draft formats. So I just really dedicated myself to always watching and drafting and whatever, and just trusting their work on constructed. And then because of that, I kind of became known as like the Team CFB limited guy or whatever. So like I said, it kind of blew up into its own brand, but it blew up into a brand from like a real thing or whatever, from me just focusing a lot of my efforts onto draft and limited from when I was with Team CFB in 2010 and 11 and so on.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I want to ask about is kind of funny, but a lot of the tournaments you like didn't attend because like you just overslept or something like that. I don't know if it's true or not, but a lot of people are joking about it on Twitter like often. So I just wanted to ask about it. Like, what is going on there?
Well, that's That's a bit of a myth. I mean, like, I've definitely missed my first round way more than most people, but that's still very rare. It's not like every other tournament I don't show up or something. So I mean, what's going on there though is traditionally, and this is my whole life. This is not magic. This is when I was in middle school and whatever. Like my whole life, I've always had trouble keeping a sleep schedule. Actually, for the first time ever, I'm not anymore. I started taking melatonin at night, and I'm not saying it will work for everybody. I'm not a doctor, my guess would be that people struggle to fall asleep for different reasons, and for some people, it's their brain isn't good at making melatonin, and for others, it's completely different reasons. But for me, my whole life, I've never been able to keep a consistent sleep schedule. Like one night I would lay in bed from, 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. and then go to sleep at 4 a.m. and wake up at 7 and go to school. Then the next night I'd be dead tired, so I'd fall asleep at 10 p.m. Then I'd wake up at 2 a.m. because I went to bed so much earlier, my brain would think I'm napping. Whatever, you get the point. So basically, I never had a consistent sleep schedule. So at Magic tournaments, I just set my alarm for the last second, and I would not get a lot of sleep, and so I would be way more likely than somebody who would just naturally be up anyway to miss a round or to show up at the last second or something. But it really is way overstated. I mean, I did miss the one Rivals first match of the day in the second of the 3 league splits I think we've played so far. Before that, when's the last time I overslept a match? I mean, I don't even know. I've obviously missed. Like I said, I've probably missed gotten a game or match loss 3 times for this or something, which is 3 times more like 3 times more than most people, obviously, but also over the past 5-10 years. 3 times or something. It's not
because, for example,
every other year that I miss a match or whatever.
For example, on the Wikipedia page, it says that one of the years, I think it might have been the year that you won a Pro Tour, you ended up third in the Player of the Year race, and the reason might have been that you didn't attend US Nationals and some of the GPs. So I just was thinking that maybe it was correlated to this, or maybe that it wasn't.
Oh no, that was all correlated to poker and splitting time and stuff. The last year, I think that I'm not sure exactly. I've read the Wikipedia. I don't remember. I didn't refresh on it right before this, but the year 2003, 2004, where I finished 7th in the Player of the Year race before I stepped away from the Pro Tour. I think they might have been talking about that year, and I skipped nationals and a bunch of Grand Prix and stuff. But that was all because of poker, not because of sleep. Mm-hmm. Especially now, I'm 37. I don't function quite as well on no sleep. But when I was 20, pulling all-nighters was just easy for me. I was the kind of person while I struggle to fall asleep, I function really well on no sleep or on a few hours of sleep, and I'm pretty much always wired. So I would just literally go to the Pro Tour and stay up all night drafting and then play the Pro Tour on no sleep. It was not sleep was not. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done better had I gotten more sleep, but lack of sleep was not why I skipped nationals or Grand Prix when I was 20 or whatever. It was because of how much money I was making playing poker. Because like I said, I come from a middle class family. We were fine. I wasn't poor. I was 8. There was always the electric was always on. But we didn't have money. My parents didn't give me money. I didn't have I didn't have any money whatsoever to do things. So when I started making online poker money, it was just wow, this is incredible. This is so much money. You know what I mean? So that was why then I started skipping some Grand Prix and Nationals. It was just because I was I'm just going to keep doing this thing. It's just too much more valuable. It wasn't in any way related to sleep or anything like that.
Last thing that I want to ask about is that now with Corona, all of the tournaments are online. I assume that you're one of the people who maybe enjoy that more because you don't have to travel and stuff, but maybe I'm wrong about that. So I just wanted to ask if you miss the real life tournaments, if maybe this is better for you, if you can just talk about that a little bit.
You're right about that. As somebody who's been traveling for Magic since 1999 regularly, I don't miss getting on airplanes. This is the first year of my life that I have not traveled. I flew to the RPT in Phoenix the end of January last year or whatever, and that's the last time I boarded an airplane. So I think it's actually been right about a calendar year now since I've boarded an airplane, and that's easily the longest since 1999. Like, you know, like it's, I mean, you know, because you played on the Pro Tour for several years, like, you know, most people think, oh yeah, like I haven't been on a trip for 3 years, that's not that long, now I'll take a trip or whatever.
Yeah.
As a Magic Pro, you're just on an airplane like every 2 weeks or whatever. I used to always joke that, you know, Delta Airlines made a lot more money off the Magic Pro Tour than Magic players did, you know, because you just had to fly so much.
Might very easily be true.
So like I definitely have been enjoying not traveling, and I'm happy to have the big tournaments online and play them from home. I do miss in-person Magic though. I'm also not like some pro who only plays Pro Tours. I play pre-releases locally in person. I play literally F&M drafts, Tuesday night drafts, you know, whenever I have the night off or the time or whatever. So I do miss all that. Like as soon as Corona's gone and everyone's vaccinated and whatever, I will be going back to my local store and doing Tuesday night drafts and doing F&M drafts and playing pre-releases and all that good stuff again. But if all the big tournaments stayed online forever, I would be totally happy with that. If I didn't have to board an airplane for Magic again, I would be ecstatic.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure.
I try not to be like biased because I know that, like I said, I've seen the whole world. So like, you know, for somebody who hasn't gotten to travel much, a big two for the Pro Tour, I understand that the idea of going to Japan or Europe or wherever, you know, depending on where they're at, going to the other continents is exciting for them. It was for me, you know, like when in 1999, when I queued for London, I was like, oh my God, I get to go to London. You know what I mean? And then after going to Europe 25 times, I was like, I'm sick of 10-hour flights and getting on airplanes. Like, you know what I mean? So like me personally, I'm happy if all the tournaments are online and I never have to board an airplane again. But I understand the counter is most people haven't flown hundreds of times for Magic tournaments. You know,
that makes sense.
Is what it is.
Makes sense. That's gonna be all for today. Thanks, Ben, for your time. It was fun. If you guys like the video, please click on the like and subscribe button, and bye bye.
And thanks for having me, Petr.
Yeah.